Cadets Chia and Uhura have completed their training rotation on the USS Enterprise. Ensign Duke gets a promotion. And if you call a lieutenant an ensign, you got to buy them a drink. It's Starfleet tradition. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk. Today we're doing a review of Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 1 of many, Episode 9, All Those Who Wander, written by Davy Perez, directed by Christopher J. Byrne, and we have a very special guest today. You guessed it. What do you know? What a coincidence. Writer, co-executive producer, Davy Perez.
Hey, what's up? Good to be here again. Thanks for having me.
Wow. Thank you so much for joining us. This is awesome.
I appreciate that.
Yes.
All right. Cirroc, we have so many things to say, and I don't know where to start. All I could throw out was awesome, but I know that we have so much to say, so let's just
we got to say it a lot better than that.
I mean, bring it. Bring the heat. Come on. I know the big question. Come
on. I can say right off the top that I as soon as this episode started, I was like hooked in on it. I thought it was just a great pace to it. Like I literally wrote great pace and love the feel just from the beginning. And I like the way it starts off with the congratulating Uhura and Lieutenant Duke getting his promotion. And I really like the camaraderie between Pike and his crew as they're kind of earning their stripes, and he's kind of encouraging them along the way. I really like that aspect of the camaraderie between the crew. So right off the top, I was like, oh, this has got a good feel. This is Star Trek. But in general, and this is one thing, without getting specifically in this episode, Strange New Worlds is my favorite new show out of the live action shows. I think it is holding the most true to what I believe is the Star Trek, Gene Roddenberry spirit, and I think it's really hitting all the marks for me of what I expect when I'm watching a Star Trek show, a very good show. And I want to congratulate you and your team for really hitting the ground running this season.
Well, thanks. I mean, coming from you, that's really high praise, and you would know about that vision, and it really is like all of us that get to work on the show. We are all fans of the franchise and the stories of the characters. So it's something I'm very proud of, and I share with all of my other creative collaborators.
Mm-hmm. Actually, that makes me think of something. Cirroc, you're stating, this is your favorite of the live action ones, and a lot of people are loving the hell out of this. I am too. We felt it's really hard to get people to fall in love with the show on the first episode. I know nowadays the pressure to do that is a lot higher than it was 20, 30, 40 years ago, before networks would keep something on for 3 or 4 seasons before people actually started liking the damn show. But you have to hit it from day one. And we were really buzzing about that first episode and about the series as a whole from that first episode. But before that, really what Star Trek is doing right now is they're creating a Star Trek for everybody, right? Everything is hitting different parts of fandom. There's the family show, there's the comedy, you're getting there's the nostalgic one. How much time was spent in meetings when you're starting the room before you're actually writing out episodes on like the tone and what nook, what corner of the Star Trek universe is this going to, sit in? More so than just it's back to the structure of episodic kind of things, but it certainly has its own voice and its own tone, right?
Yeah, we spent a lot of the early weeks, even months, of the room talking about that and sort of nailing down specifically what each episode's tone is going to be, or its meta genre, and that was when we were starting season 1. That was the thing that we said we could do, because Star Trek has done that. Episodic Star Trek takes big swings, and they have, silly episodes, and then they have, love stories, and then they have horror episodes. And it actually got to the point where we had too many for our first season. We there were so many we wanted to do that we were like, oh, we'll have to do that, if we get a season 2. And we did get to do a season 2. And there were still so many that were like, well, we didn't do that one. We got to do that one, So a horror episode was, 100% one that we wanted to do for season 1. And I happen to be a genre writer with a horror background. So I really was fortunate that I got to write, episode 9. I also kind of was fortunate to co-write episode 4, which is the
Memento Mori, which was also in this kind of tone, right?
Similar I mean, that one was supposed to be like the submarine movie, sort of like the war, battle of wits, but some horror elements kind of stuck in there because of just the Gorn nature of the Gorn, and also my style, and Bo co-writing Memento Mori with me. And so this was the spiritual sibling to that. It deals with the Gorn. It pays off a lot of the arcs that we set up in 4. And so it made sense that I got to write this one. And you mentioned pacing, and that's like 100%, just the lessons that I've learned with, when you're writing a good horror, you kind of ease people into a certain sense of security. You make them laugh, you get them on board with the characters, and then you just you flip that around, and then all of a sudden you're like, wait a second, I felt okay like 2 minutes ago, and now I don't feel okay. What's going on?
Yeah, stuff goes south really fast, right? It's like, oh yeah, okay, all right, nothing's here, nothing to worry about. Wait a minute, there's a lot to worry about.
Exactly. This isn't just a road trip. This is, the road trip from hell. So
the station
how much
wagon.
Does it make you giggle inside? Because I'm watching this episode. One of my first notes. Okay, they said, "Oh, congratulations, Lieutenant Duke." As soon as I saw that, I wrote down, "Duke gonna die."
Yeah, Duke's a dead man.
Oh yeah,
I already knew it before. I was like, when I was waiting for it, waiting for the moment, I was like, Duke gonna die.
Here's your promotion. Take your red shirt. Here you go.
Yeah, there's hard tropes like that, right? It's like let's care just a little bit for that person who's about to get yoinked down the and so there's a little bit of a meta knowledge that the guy getting a promotion, he's not gonna make the girl that we've never seen before that's 2 weeks done with her rotation, probably not gonna make it. And ironically, he's a gold shirt and she's a blue shirt, and so there was this sort of like playing with the whole Trek, like red shirts always die. And so there was like, well, no, the yellow shirt died, the blue shirt died, anyone can die. And then by the end of the episode, we know, yes, and a very, important red shirt actually died. And so even in just the sort of subtleties of that, there was some fun to be had.
Actually, how hard was that for you? Because that was a little bit difficult. I know Ryan is probably going to say the same thing that I'm about to say, which is we have grown to really like Hemmer so much, and he's kind of attached to. How hard is it to write that kind of out? I didn't expect that. I was like, that came out of left field for me. Hemmer's kind of exit from this show. But how hard is it to write such a character that everybody likes so much and is so good at being that sarcastic kind of witty guy?
It was tough. I mean, to be fair, we knew we were going to be killing that character off from before we even cast the actor. Like we had this discussion when we were talking about genres, and we were talking about horror movies, and we're like, something horror movies really often do is they kill somebody off that you didn't expect to die. That's in Hitchcock, some of these big actors that he would cast would die like in the first act. And so we were like, what if we killed somebody that one of our main people? And it's like, well, we'd have to care about them, and it'd have to be somebody, and the conversation started, and then we started creating the engineer as the Anar, and we cast Bruce, and Bruce Horak is just really amazing as
fabulous casting, by the way. Really cool.
And he brought that to life. And then I remember watching some of the early dailies with him, and we're like, are we really gonna kill this guy off? Like, he's really good. I'm in love with the character.
Are we gonna back out of this?
Yeah.
We kept saying like, fuck, we fell in love with him, and it was like, well, that was the point. We said that was the point. Fall in love with the person. And then the chemistry that he had with Celia as a Hura was just like, we were putting them together, and we hoped that they would have that chemistry. But it was like lightning in a bottle. It made them easy.
Yeah.
right? And so, yeah, when it came to actually committing to like, this was the storyline that we talked about, right down to the wire. I was like, we're sure we're doing this. It's like, yeah. And I got choked up. I got teary eyed. Like, I was like, what would I want to say if I had to say goodbye, or what would I want to hear if somebody I cared about was saying goodbye? And I just feel like kind of wanted it to resonate with people. And so I knew that it was good enough when I got choked up writing it, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
If it felt too much, or if it felt like, oh, I overdid it, or this just feels like lines. And I got a little teary eyed. I said, okay.
It choked me up when I was watching it. I mean, because he says, I lived a good life. Like, that's one thing that somebody who is basically come to terms with the end. They analyze, you know what, I lived a good life. It's all right. I can call it quits now and not say, hey, I missed out on love. I missed out on traveling, or whatever it is that you consider to be a good life for yourself. But I really like the words of advice that he passed on to Uhura, which is, make a home for yourself, and basically settle yourself and stop being, don't be all over the place. Just find that home for you and make it, he didn't say on the ship, but that was implied.
Yeah.
And my question is actually in relation to that storyline: is Uhura's reluctancy to be, on the ship, is that tied into Nichelle Nichols' reluctancy to kind of want to walk away from Star Trek and the whole conversation she had with, Martin Luther King?
Right. I never really drew that parallel, but it's interesting that you could see that. I think we were, when we were writing that for her, we were trying to get into the mindset of a young person who is sort of like graduating college or about to graduate college, and having the pressures of being like a mega star, straight A student, could go anywhere, can do anything. But because everyone has sort of been telling you that you're the best, does that necessarily mean that you have to do the top of the expectation?
Right.
Trying to shed that pressure, and then on top of that, for Uhura, she was dealing with the tragedy of her parents.
Right.
And but it's funny because we did talk a lot about Nichelle Nichols. So I wonder if some of that sort of seeped in there, sort of because we talked about expectations that people put on you. And I know the Nichelle story, there's a lot of that for her, that there's that she was struggling with the expectations of what a Black woman should be represented as on television. And am I just a silly space person in a skirt? And then the conversation you had with MLK was, no, you're a Black person in space, a Black woman in space,
right?
Kicking ass. And we definitely wanted that to be aspirational, and we had those conversations as well, as far as paying homage to what has been before, but also making it relevant to now, and then telling the story for people to resonate with now. And sorry if I got a little animated there, but like, I love, this is why we write Trek, right? To make social commentary on things, to like open up people's minds to things, and you sneak it into the subtext, and you hope that it resonates. So like, when people finally do get the subtext, or when they're like, hey, that means something to me, I'm like, yes, it's supposed to mean something to you. That's the point of Star Trek.
We did our job.
Right.
We
did our job. Yeah.
That's really interesting too, because as writers, like you in particular, they gave you the 2 episodes, right? Episode 4 and episode 9. That couldn't have been arbitrary. I'm assuming that they deliberately had you, since they were similar, in tonality, they both dealt with the Gorn.
I don't know if there was ever like a consorted plan, but I think it sort of did line up like that at a certain point. I'm trying to really think back to that time. I know we were asked, what episode would you like to write at a certain point? And I did say, well, the submarine one would be fucking cool. Because I want to write that one. It's like Balance of Terror, and it's the Gorn, but it just lined up with the way the assignments were being put out, that was the one I would probably have gotten anyway. Because it was the 4th one. When we started getting to the back half, it was the horror episode. and the rotation had gone through, and it was my, I was like, I'm getting the horror episode, it looks like, and they're like, yeah, you're getting the horror episode, it's the gore. And I'm like, awesome, and then it sort of allowed me to kind of like really, because I was inside of 4 so much, I was able to really get inside of 9 early on, and know what were some of the character things I would want to do there. And I do have to say that a lot of 9 was also with Kayla Cooper's help, because she is an amazing writer in her own right, and she does horror, as we all know, like with a a quality that is something to aspire to. So
I think she did episode 8 like right before this one too.
Yeah, her and Onitra did episode 8,
right?
And a lot of just the fun of talking about horror with another horror writer. You're able to bounce ideas off each other, and just, yes, and we have to do that, and we have to do that, and we're definitely gonna do that. And I think she was, we had talked about Alien, and how obviously there was a lot of crossover and the potential for us like going too much Alien. And we were like, well, we talked about that they infect people. We talked about them being you
can't go too much Aliens. That's one of the best movies of all time.
It is.
And I think that when some people, I think almost everybody caught that right away, right?
Head, bald, and Sigourney Weaver style, and I would have
there was a newt in there. Like, I feel like as soon as people made the connection, they're like, hey, this is just like Alien. Yeah. Everybody after that went, cool.
This is cool. So in episode 4, the little girl's name is Fig, because I like Fig Newton, because I was like, obviously this is like a newt from Alien in 4. I mean, then in 9 it was like, we're really gonna have another girl, and so, but then it just made sense, because our character needs to see a distorted mirror of herself, and for Lon, it would just make that storyline make a lot of sense. So it was, embracing Alien without just completely retreading it wholesale, and then other horror movies. But I brought it up specifically because we were agonizing whether we could do like these things bursting out of people, because that's such an Alien thing. And then I think it was Kayla who brought up these frogs that give birth through their back, and multiple frogs. Tadpoles, like, there was like, I remember the so creepy looking, and she sent the video, and I was like, well, yeah, we're gonna do that now. And so we decided it was not one but multiples that are gonna burst out of this thing's back, and it's based out of amphibian sort of nature biology. So we're like, well, that makes sense for our creature then.
I had the title as Born Again, Gorn Again.
Okay.
That's good. That was that's my T-shirt that I'll have printed up. But I definitely liked a lot of the choices. You actually went for going in depth into Spock's character, and you went into this whole kind of reaching into the dark side of Spock. I like that that you're releasing some kind of emotional aspect to him. I really enjoyed the scene that you wrote about where Sam Kirk is calling him a pointy-eared computer.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's going to be a fun one to write.
That was fun. I mean, one of the things I love about the original series was the way Bones would kind of take down Spock quite a bit. Yeah. And he was like, their back and forth was always my favorite kind of, banter. And so it was a little bit of channeling that sort of like assholery of human putting down the Vulcan. And then the pointy-eared computer line is from an episode where Kirk is trying to get him mad, and he's trying to, because I think it's like Spock's infected with something, and you have to get him mad in order to clear the infection, or I can't remember the details, but I do remember James Kirk looking at him and said, "You're nothing but a pointy-eared computer." And I was like, "Oh, gotta take that
the burn."
That's a nice little gem right there for.
Can I also toss in, if we're talking about like one-liners that we really enjoyed, this line belonged to Mbenga, and who, by the way, we fell in love with in the first 5 minutes of the first episode. Babs is an amazing actor. The character is great, and Babs plays it in such a charming and charismatic way. but he has the line when Kirk is being, you know, if we're going with the aliens analogy, he's being Hudson. Why don't you put her in charge or game over, man? One of those guys. But Mbenga says, I could give him a sedative. And he says it kind of, you know, just like, just putting it out there. I could do something about this.
You don't mess with Mbenga. You know, he's got, especially in season 2, you'll see he's got a, you know, we all fall in love with him already in season 1. And what's great is we're going to, you know, we're going to look under some layers of that character, and you realize you know, where some of that coolness comes from and some of that poise comes from. It really is, you know, he's a man of many experiences. And so, yeah, you know, I love that about him too, where you're just like, oh shit, don't mess around with him, Mbenga. He'll put you down.
I love it.
I did also like this blue alien that was introduced in this episode, this one-off. I thought I don't know if it was CGI or if it was actually makeup job, but it looked like CGI to me. But it looked awesome. And did you have any kind of input on developing that alien, or is that something strictly handled by you know?
You're talking about the Buckley, the guy that gave birth to the yeah,
right, yeah.
So that was an animatronic suit. Yeah. So I'm sure they sweetened it a little bit with some vis effects, but
oh yeah, wow. So that was a live person inside.
That was a guy in a suit, and it was a hot suit. I think he needed to take a break a couple times because he was in there. And we cast this actor Carlos Borans, and he was so great in the audition, and then we put a big rubber mask on his head, and you know, so he's he's still. It sucks sometimes.
He's trying his best, but you got all this stuff on you,
yeah. But he's still, you know, but there was a quality to him that shone through, and very protective, and yeah, you know, we wanted an alien that was completely brand new, never heard of. You know, the translators can't even translate their language. And so I got to make up all the nonsense words that he was saying.
Oh, you wrote those, really?
Yeah. And I was very
cool.
strict.
I was wondering about that.
Should be pronounced. I was like, it's Carfarsh. Make sure it's Carfarsh.
Yeah, come on, guys, get it right.
Come on, don't you know? Don't you read? And you know, so that was. I mean, it was really, really cool. We even like after seeing it, we were just like, man, we got to bring those people back. Like, we got to bring that alien back because it was just such a cool design. Yeah. And then just like, it makes you think of like this seafaring society or spacefaring society, and, you know, who are they? And, you know, they have a different look. And we talked a little bit about with props and costume that they come from a more organic society. So that's why a lot of his stuff, it's a spear instead of a gun. And actually the little amulet he has kind of looks wood. And so we're like, maybe they just developed their technology a little differently, and they still have a lot of organic stuff in there.
Well, shout out to the people that made the alien. I don't know if that's necessarily like fully like animatronics department, if that's a specific department, if it's all just makeup.
I believe that was Legacy. Legacy, who designed Argorn, I believe also designed the Buck.
Because when he first came out, my first thought was, okay, this guy's going to die. But then I was like, but I thought he was going to die sooner, because I didn't think that there would be much you could do with that big, you know, the big mask and the big everything. So I didn't think there was too much you could do. So you'd want to kind of play it safe or something like that. But they did. And they gave him a full like personality and a really dramatic scene. And it looked great. And it sounded great when the guy is panting and breathing hard and the tension was building. I was just like, this is A+ stuff. Like with the makeup and with the acting and with the directing and the way it was written and how it looked visually. I was just great tense scenes.
You're 100% right. It's just a marriage of all things working. You know, the right actor, the right creature design, the right, you know, costume design, and Christopher J. Byrne just directing the shit out of it, you know, and it was awesome. You know, I was there on set watching this all come together, and like could not be happier, because I was like, you put stuff on a page and sometimes you put it there for like tonal quality and you're like, well, it'll never really be this. It'll be something close. But then you're like, oh no, they really nailed that, you know, because I put that the alien was very talkative and likable, and you know, and that's, they made him talkable, you know, talkative and likable, and you put the, you know, the pauses in there, and then, you know, he shot sequence that in such a way that was just easy to cut together, and it was, you know, I was very happy with the way it all ended up coming together.
Yeah, I want to commend you on a couple of things that you're doing that I think are working well for me. And maybe it's just me, but I'm sure there's a large people out there that are watching that feel the same way. Number one, I like the fact that you bring back either the captain's log or the personal logs.
Yes.
You brought that in this season, and it felt like something that was missing over the last other iterations of live action Star Trek. I like hearing Pike's captain log or even the other personal logs from some of the other characters. It gives me like a Wonder Years kind of narration aspect that Star Trek is kind of, you know, really coined in those ways. The other thing I really like that you do, and I'm sure you're doing this purposely, that's why I want to commend you for it, is the ends of your episodes. So the episode doesn't just end right when, let's say, Hammer walks off into the space and dies, whatever. You usually have these extra scenes where I'm like, oh, the episode's not over yet. There's still another, like, you know, the situation's resolved, but there's still 3 minutes of, you know, talking time, or let's say, for example, Uhura coming onto the bridge and kind of having that moment where she realizes, you know, this may be my home right here, and I'm going to choose this place. I like the endings of kind of giving me a chance to exhale at the end of the episode. That's something you're doing consciously, right?
No, yeah. I mean, I wish I could take all the credit for that, but I think that's large.
Yeah, your team. That's what I want to extend to everybody.
Yeah, the showrunners, you know, Kiva Goldsman and Henry Alonzo Myers, they really set the template with the pilot, and then in the execution of the episodes, I remember having conversations about, are we going to do a log for every episode? And it was a very early yes. I mean, it just makes sense.
Yeah.
And then it was, is it always a captain's log? And then it was, no, it's not always a captain's log, because something that later Trek did really well was sometimes focus in on different characters.
Yeah.
And a episode could be solely about one character, and sort of people kind of floating in and out of that person's orbit. And so that was easy to then say, well, we should make the log about whose episode it is. It's just easy. And sometimes it, you know, it starts that way, but then what we found in the execution is that, which is okay too, is that sometimes that log became the B story. You know, that log of that character became, and the A story, sort of, you know, a story that was meant to not take as much real estate, ended up saying, you know what, this, you really got to tell me first, and then you can tell that other C story. Sorry. But that's okay. You know, that the as the story reveals itself, that happened, but we still wanted to frame the logs in that way. And then I think I know I did it in my episode, was because I was watching TNG and I realized, like, you know, an episode started with a Picard log, and then in the middle had a Worf log, and then it went back to a Picard log. Yeah. So I did that where I was like, you know what, I'm going to have Lon's log, but then I'm going to go to a Pike log, and then I'm going to come back to a Lon's log, so that you could really get into anyone's mindset for an act. And I'm going to drink some tea, and then I'm going to tell you a good cheat about the log too.
Okay.
Yeah, you get in the mindset, and that's what I feel like. I feel like it gives me just a little bit more expose on the story.
Yeah, it's a really, as a writer, it's a really valuable tool, because if you do it right, you can write a ton of exposition in that log that you then go, I don't have to write that scene. I don't have to hold everyone's hand and explain to them what's at stake. I can just tell them right away, boom, we're here, this is what we're doing, and this is where we're in the middle of a thing. And then now we can get to the story, because we understand, and we're orientated to what's happening. And then now we can follow along what's really important to watch.
Yeah, it's the perfect way to see that.
Yeah, when was the last time that you could have like this cheat code to where you can just cram a bunch of exposition in for free and the fans are happy about it. They're like, "Oh, cool."
Yeah.
But we love it.
Yeah.
You open
I got in the
up,
head of my captain, yeah.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
set up the story. We know what it's going to be about. We get like, we find out who's going to be kind of possibly the main character, or what point of view this is going to be told from. It's really interesting and fun. And in this one, when we hear Cadet Uhura's personal log or something, we go, okay, and we kind of lean in. Okay, let's see where this takes us. It's really, really fun and interesting, and it's such a useful tool for you as a writer. But speaking of which, something that I've been wanting to ask you is some of these things that really make it a great episode, really hammer a point home, or a feeling, is the acting. For example, you write this really powerful, sad, scene. Hammer dies, right? We're all feeling it, and it's really affecting us. But then when we see Celia's reaction, it takes it to another level, and that's purely her acting that adds that extra element to it. And it seems like every episode or two, me personally, I'm further impressed by somebody's acting. At first, it was Mbenga immediately. Pike, we're like, okay, we get it. You have an 11 on charm. Quit showing off. You're the best. We get. He's got his tongs. He does his thing with his tongs. I'm like, okay, this guy's too good. It's not fair to the rest of us. But like, everybody has these moments where they shine. Celia did. For me today, upon watching this episode, it was actually Laan, right? Because it's tough to really show off your acting skills when you are a little bit more of a one-note type character, like a Data or a Tuvok. She is stern and she's tough. Right. We got to see a lot of her great, amazing ability in the previous episode. But in this one too, I'm really seeing that she's an incredible actor. And, it was tough for me to catch that at first, but now I really see it. It must be so helpful to you. Sorry, I was just going to say, it must be so helpful to you as a writer to, you imagine these things and you write these great scripts, and not only is the director nailing it and the makeup and the props, but also the actors are giving you so much. It's got to be a great feeling.
It's an amazing feeling. I mean, we have an amazing cast. I mean, there's no doubt that that's the secret sauce that we're playing with here. They all come prepared, and they all have really insightful questions. You mentioned the Celia at the door reaction, and if I remember correctly, I think in the script it said something like Chapel holds Uhura back. And Celia came to me and she was like, why am I being held back? Am I, like, I know it's locked. I'm not trying to, break the door down. I said, oh, I'm sorry. I was being ambiguous. It's, she's really, you're having an emotional moment, and she's really trying to, hold you together, basically. Is more likely what's happening there. And she said, oh, okay, I get that now. And then you see what we see. It's like, oh, I write a thing, and it's in my head, and then someone's asking the right questions about that thing, and then they bring this moment to life, and you're like, oh wow, that was great, powerful stuff. You also you bring up Laan, who's played by Chrissy Chong, and she, always, and she'll tell you too. She's always, giving it to me for whatever reason, because she's like, "Oh, I know Davey will have the answer for this," and she's got these things trying to break me basically with the questions about why this and sometimes I'm like, all right, Chrissy, I think you got the answer. Now you're just trying to but
she is so amazing. I'm in love with her, her character. She's just like, she has the coldest cut eye cuts that I've ever that pretty much you can get, as cold as you can get. I think when Pike says, hey, if anybody has to go, now's the time, the look she gives him, like, it's like, it's the way like when your dad embarrasses you showing up at school or something. She looks like really, and she's like, and she cuts him down as if he's like not even the captain. Like, I love the way she does that.
So cool. What's great is because she understands the comedy in that moment, and the best comedy is when you play it dead serious sometimes. And so I mean, as the security officer that doesn't get jokes, she's like, who is this guy and what the fuck is he saying?
She's not giving him any complimentary laughs, nothing. You're not getting any freebies. And then I also love the idea of you having Pike at the, like, in these little barbecue cook-off kind of meetings.
So good.
I love that, where he's wearing an apron and he's kind of like, just and they're at the table eating cheese, and I love that. It feels like a writer's meeting. It feels like an executives getting together. There's this casualness to it, even though there's still a hierarchy, but it's like a friendly, fun kind of vibe, as opposed to like, yes sir, no sir. And I like the camaraderie there in those kinds of situations that you put.
Yeah, that was a decision we made early on too, and we came out of room discussions of, the TNG poker table sequences. A lot of those moments became, became defined by people getting around the table to play poker together. And we were like, what kind of captain is Captain Pike? He's someone who he opens up to ideas from everybody. He treats everyone like family, and what's more family than getting together at a table? And so I think we were talking about a set piece for what was supposed to be like a one-off dinner sequence that then became, what if this is like, I think episode 2 has that sequence, and we're like, what if that just became his thing? Like, it's not a one-off, like design. Now let's design the set to actually have this be what he does. He the kitchen is a main feature, and he makes his quarters a home for everybody, really. And that's it really defined it made him so much easier to write the moment we were like, oh, that's what he does. He invites people to dinner. He gets to be like this dad figure to them, and you're all here at the table, and you're all here to sort of, and it really opened up how we write the characters and the relationships to each other. So
yeah. And you said dad figure, which is something for me.
Totally. Oh, go ahead.
No, I like that you said dad figure, because I get that vibe. For example, when Lieutenant Duke got his promotion, Pike's like, yeah, man, good job. Like the way he did it, like
like a proud soccer dad.
Yeah, the way he did it was like, I was like, oh man, I like his enthusiasm in that scene. And then even further on later down in the episode, when Sam Kirk he's kirking out on Spock.
Yeah.
And at some point you see Pike coming, he's like, all right.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's funny you mentioned those two moments, because the Lieutenant Duke sequence had a little bit of a head on it. We always cut stuff for time, right? But this was one that was hard to let go of. But it was they were kind of messing with him, and they were like, front and center, and he got reprimanded for like doing something, and then Pike says, turn around for your and that's when the part that you see, right? And so there was this like great thing that Anson did, where he was like very stern and very like, speaking of bonds and oaths, like you screwed up and you're no longer an ensign. And he's like, what? He's like, you're a lieutenant now. And he does that. There's a little bit of that survived. So I'm glad you caught that.
A little bit did. Yeah. Love those reactions. Those small reactions are they're priceless. They're priceless. And that's what these actors do such a great job of.
Yeah. And the other moment you mentioned was when Sam Kirk was freaking out, and he just called Spock pointing at a computer, and I remember I had a different, maybe a little bit too wordy line in there, or a couple lines, and with total respect, Ensign came to me and he goes, hey, can I try something for you, see if you like it, and I said yeah, and so in the blocking he just did that. He goes, hey. Like he did, that's it. That's all he had to say, right? And I was like, "Oh yeah, of course." Like he got what I was reaching for with all those words, but he's like, no, that's just a dad thing. And I was, totally, you know, and I was like, yes, you know, let's do that one, because for me, that's all I needed out of that, and he understood that and was able to work with total respect and collaboration to get that moment, and it you know, that's who he is. He's Captain Dad, right? So it was such a nice you know,
what would like you and your brother are arguing, and he'll let it go just to a certain point, but now once he's crossed the line, he's like, hey.
Yeah, exactly.
You know that's enough, right? He doesn't have to go into explanation.
And that was the point of that scene. Like, he was there, but he was like, I know my crew is losing their shit. I know that we were being hunted. I need them to vent. I need them to get all of this out, because once we're done with that, now we got to work on the solution. And so
that's what he said. He said, "Sounds like a plan." Hey, that's another line that he came. He's like, "Yeah, that sounds like a plan to me. Like, it sounds like starting to come up with a plan." And that reminded me of the A-Team, and when they start coming up with them A-Team plans, you know.
That's 100%. That's it. You nailed it. That was one of my favorite shows as a kid, and there's even like I hope they have it on an outtake, but there's one where he says, you know, BA.
I love it when
that's what I thought you were gonna say. Yeah, I love it when a plan comes together.
Like, let's, you know, I love it when a plan comes together, because like BA face man, you know what to do, or something. He said something. He said some A-Team reference, and I was like, he got that. I mean, that's, you know, but stuff like that is satisfying, right? When you earn that sort of TV moment of like, yes, I love it when a plan.
If you don't know that to look for it, if you don't have the reference, really, it could go over you.
Yeah.
But guys like us that grew up watching these kinds of things, as soon as I hear that, oh, now it's not like we're hearing, you know, plan. Now I'm hearing a plan. That just triggered a memory for me, and I was like, he hit that mark. He delivered that moment for me, and sold it. So I love every minute of what you guys have been doing this season. I think you have a great cast. I do have one little minor complaint, and that's I want to see more Ortegas. I think the camera loves her. The camera loves her. She's awesome, and I think that a little more backstory, and I'm sure that's coming. I know, I'm not rushing you, but I'm just saying that there is a demand out there for.
Well, I mean, obviously for representation reasons, I want to see a lot more Ortegas myself. But also Melissa is just amazing as the character, and she brings life to it in a very awesome way. We were always in the room saying Ortegas has the best lines. We love this character, you know. Has the best lines. She says the thing we all would say in that situation.
That's what you're thinking.
Yeah, right.
Like, I'm hitting it, Captain.
I'm hitting it. It's not working.
Are you gonna say the thing?
Yeah.
Hit it.
And without a doubt, we'll be seeing more of Ortega's season 2, and you know, we'll get to kind of see her.
I mean, there's a lot of characters. You've covered so much ground already. Right. You've given us some great episodes. You're unfolding things. You did leave it kind of hanging on a cliffhanger with Spock. It's like when you see the guy walking away at the end, they're holding it, and he's like, all right, that's enough. I can't give you any more. I'm like, what are you doing, bro? This is the time. This is the time. So you gave us a little cliffhanger on that, and gave us a little, spicy for the future to marinate on. Definitely love what you guys are doing on this show. I think it's just like it feels so familiar. It feels like it feels familiar to me. I think that it's just the writing. And another thing is that I feel like I could watch an episode and then I can walk away from it. It's like, okay, that happened. And now when I look forward to next episode, I don't feel the pressure of like, oh my God, what happened in the last 4 episodes leading up to this?
I need to take notes.
I need to know. Yeah.
Well, that's the joy of an episodic show, right? You can come in and you can just sort of like the problem is given to you in the first 10 minutes, and we resolve that problem by the end. And occasionally there's character strings that will continue, but if we're doing our job right, you'll kind of pick those up even if you had just picked up this episode for the first time and didn't see what Spock and Chapel had going on before, you could tell by that little hallway sequence that like, or even by before when she's giving him looks or when she's kind of flirting with him with the stuff, you're like, these two got something going on.
Yeah.
You know, there's something more than them just being coworkers.
Great too. It's really working. It's really working on the screen.
I mean, credit to Ethan and Jess for having their chemistry, but also, you know, the for us that are real TOS fans and getting to write the show, we talked about, you know, Chapel didn't really get a lot of respect, you know, the way she was written back in the day, and it was always like, oh, I like this guy I could never have, and it was sort of a product of the time, you know, that a woman would be written that way. And so it was a way to sort of to write an actual romantic love interest without undoing canon. And also it's hard because we didn't want to just write her as, again, I have this attraction for Spock and he's not reciprocating. So we had to give them a real story. We had to give them a real friendship that sort of blossomed. And where's that friendship going to go? And we get to see the way that sometimes friendships get a little deeper. And, you know, hopefully if we earn it and we're writing it correctly, it can feel like an organic relationship, whatever you want to call that, whether it's romantic or not, and not just a one-sided, you know, pixie dream of a male lens thing that would happen because I'm so cool, I'm going to get this that's going to be after me, you know. For sure, based on that one hallway sequence, yes, we you know, there was a cliffhanger, and you know, we'll come back to in season 2, how is Spock dealing with these human emotions that have come out, and how is Chapel dealing with, there's more to this guy that I think is my friend, but is now there's different feelings involved, and he's going through a thing, and why am I going through a feeling now that I didn't think I had, you know?
We only have a couple minutes left, but I mean, since we're making requests and everybody wants to see more Tegas, and I'm on that boat as well, but you know, while we're at it, I want to see more Hemmer. So please see if you can make that happen for us, please. More Hemmer. We'll get.
I mean, that's kind of hard, right?
Watch the episode again.
Watch it more closely.
I guess, you know, flashbacks. There's always flashbacks. But I think one thing we're allowed to say is that Bruce Horak, the guy who plays Hemmer, his relationship with Trek is not over. You know, we really
okay.
So you know, and Star Trek has a long history of reusing
Jeffrey Combs's.
Yes.
We've,
you know,
there's been plenty.
There's a plenty of people that you just fall in love with, and you're like, well, look, they were an alien. They could be another alien. They could be without the makeup because they were an alien. So whatever is in the future, we know his relationship with Star Trek is not over.
All right, Bruce Horak as a Klingon next week.
Last question is, I know we did a little research. It said that Pike had to have 3 love scenes in a season. So he had 2 already. Is the next episode he's going to definitely hook up again? Because we're keeping count of how many times.
Where did this?
There's a count. There's a running count.
He's supposed to have 3? I didn't know.
No, that's a joke. That's just a joke.
Okay.
There is a running count because we are keeping count. I think it's been 2 already so far.
I think I can say that, you know, episode 10 is probably fair to call it a Pike episode. You know, we started the season with the Pike episode, and he is the captain of the ship. And it's very clear that our season finale is very much a Pike episode. Doesn't mean everyone isn't featured and we don't get to learn some things, but I think I'm very excited for the fans out there to see the finale for many personal reasons. That's all I'll say. I won't hype it up too much.
Oh wow, we're excited.
Okay. You know what I'm not excited about? We're going to have to go a year without any more Strange New Worlds. Like, I didn't realize it was going to affect me like this, but I'm telling you, by episode 4, I was already stressed that the season was going to end. I was already like, man, we only have 6 episodes left. Like I was already sad, but I do want to point out, and I'm looking at some notes our friend Don Crandall sent in as well. You did have a Deep Space Station K7 tossed in there, which was really great. I don't know if everybody caught that, but that is The Trouble with Tribbles, and also Deep Space Nine's The Trials and Tribulations. Don also mentions, and I noticed this too, when Spock lost his cool, it was reminiscent of the 2009 movie as well. When if you guys have seen the 2009 movie, he kind of like loses his shit for a while, and it reminded me of that. And I thought it was really cool that both actors, Zach and Ethan, kind of played it similarly. And I do like that there's a connection there to where the fans can kind of, whether it's imagined or not, we can go like, oh, that reminds me of Spock.
That was Spock would do.
That was definitely.
The Calvin universe isn't supposed to be our universe, but the Vulcan physiology is supposed to be similar, and we sort of talked about Vulcans feel things stronger than humans do, and that's why they have logic inhibitors. They need logic because and that's all set up in quite a few different episodes, and they also have like a very primal past, and so we just said, well, what if there was this little Vulcan ceremony that he could do to get those inhibitors down, and that's and then that was all Ethan, just sort of going hog wild with the spear. And it's interesting. I wonder if that influenced them, or if they just sort of both got so inside of the mind of Spock and Vulcans that they manifested it in that same way.
I would probably think it's the latter. Would be my guess.
Yeah, I did like the way Ethan, by the way, delivered that line when Hammer says, the only way out for me is to, I have to kill myself, essentially. And they cut to Spock, and he looks, and he's like, illogical.
He's like, calm down, bro. Calm down.
It's like, yeah. That's not the conclusion I'm coming up with.
By the way, little known fact, I was in that scene with Spock in the 2009 movie where he freaked out. That was a fun time. Just remember that.
Oh, really?
Actually, yeah. Good memories there when I first started acting. It was a fun time being on the Enterprise for the first time ever.
You brought it up.
I was a Starfleet officer.
It's funny. It just happens to be the thing that I have a photograph of it.
Yeah. Well, if you have time, I'll bring up I'll get a picture, but no, I don't have it on. But Davey, this has been so cool.
Oh man,
really appreciate you joining us.
Every second that you've been here and giving us so much insight on work that you're doing, man. You're awesome. Thank you so much, and keep it up because we're eating it up.
Oh, thank you guys for all the love and for having me on and for just putting good energy out there for us. I appreciate it.
No, you're doing it.
Yeah. I have like 50 more questions, so we hope you come back sometime soon. We'd love to have you.
It's really enough about Hammer.
We love it. It's Hammer time, man. It's never enough.
Have me back for my season 2 episode.
All right. Oh, that'll be great. That'll be great.
Looking forward to it. That's almost done shooting, and so we're going to be getting updates from that sometime from StarTrek.com. They're going to be putting stuff out pretty soon. I'm sure.
I'm sure at Comic-Con you'll be hearing some stuff too. So
this show is not going anywhere. So that's a fact. You've got the right ingredients, and just keep up the that Alfred Hitchcock, Twilight Zone 18, everything that you put together.
I was gonna say that's why
all the best of the best.
That's why Star Trek That's why, Cirroc, you're loving this version of Star Trek so much. There's a lot of Twilight Zone feel to this, where every episode's a little different. I'm like, Cirroc is eating this up, and so am I.
I actually had my own prediction for this episode before the alien stuff popped off. I was like, oh, I know what's going to happen. And I was completely wrong. So I might have to pitch my episode to you because it was pretty good. It was pretty good.
Yeah.
Jake Sisko knows writing. All right. Anyway, we would like to give a very special thanks to Homer Frizzell, Dr. Anne-Marie Segal, Eve England out in Wales, Yvette Blackmon, Carmen, a.k.a. Skillet, Tim Baum, a.k.a. Grandpa One, TJ Jackson-Bey out in Missouri, Bill Victor Arucan, Titus Muller, Darlena Marie, John Mann, Dr. Muhammad Noor, Tierney C. Diekman, Anna Post, Rex A. Wood, Anil O. Palat, Erica Strom, Joe Balsarati, Mike Gu, Dr. Stephanie Baker, DQ, Neil Akasaka, Justine Norton Kurtzen, and of course, everybody knows Dr. Susan V. Gruner. Thank you all. And thank you, Davey. This has been so cool. We appreciate you taking the time out of your very busy schedule to laugh at our dumb jokes and really paint a picture of what goes on set and in the writer's room. It's fascinating. We love it. And we hope you guys get about, 14 or 15 seasons out of this, but selfishly, because we want to see it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me.
And everybody at home, thank you for joining us. We will see you next time. And until then, always remember the 7th rule.